Imagine waking up to find objects mysteriously moved around your room. That was the reality for journalist Tristan Redman. As a 16-year-old, he found himself living in an old Victorian house in London, tucked away in the top-floor bedroom. With the creaking floorboards and the whispering wind, the room held an eerie charm. But it wasn't the quaint aesthetics that piqued Tristan's curiosity. It was the peculiar occurrences that began to unfold. Every morning he'd wake up to find that certain objects in his room had been shuffled around, as if by an invisible hand. A yellow vase, in particular, seemed to have a life of its own. It would hop from the mantelpiece to the desk overnight, only to relocate to a different spot the next day. And then there were the lights, flashing on and off, seemingly of their own accord. As the peculiarities escalated, so did the chill in the room. A cold feeling would creep over Tristan when he was home alone. It was the kind of cold that seeped into the bones, the kind that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Yet despite these strange happenings, Tristan remained skeptical. He chalked it all up to his sister playing tricks on him, refusing to entertain the possibility of a ghostly presence. After all, he didn't believe in ghosts. Years passed, and the mysterious occurrences in the old Victorian house faded into the backdrop of Tristan's memories. He all but forgot about the flashing lights, the moving vase, and the bone-chilling cold. That is, until an email from his dad landed in his inbox. The email contained a conversation his father had with an old neighbor who had an uncanny encounter with a former resident of their London home. This resident claimed the house was haunted. "Do you still have that ghost in the top bedroom?" the neighbor recalled being asked. Suddenly, the memories came flooding back to Tristan. The moving objects, the flashing lights, the cold feeling. It was only when an old neighbor brought up the topic of a ghost that Redman began to question his experiences. An unexpected email from his father stirred up old memories. It was a conversation his father had with an old neighbor, a conversation about their former London home. The neighbor had once been asked by a previous inhabitant, "Do you still have that ghost in the top bedroom?" Suddenly the oddities of his youth, the shuffling of objects, the flashing of lights, the chilling solitude, all seemed to take on a new significance. The ghost they spoke of was a faceless woman, a spectral presence that echoed eerily with Redman's own experiences. The teenage dismissals of his sister's pranks were replaced with a creeping realization. He was not alone in his encounters. His memories, once assumed to be the playful tricks of an imaginative mind, now seemed to hold a deeper, darker truth. The story of the faceless woman was not just his story, but a shared narrative of those who had lived in that house. This was the moment Redman knew he had to unravel the mystery. As it turns out, the ghost story was just the tip of the iceberg. The real chill in the air came from a gruesome tale of murder and betrayal within Tristan Redman's wife's family. The victim was none other than Naomi, his wife's great-grandmother. Naomi's life was brutally cut short, right in the house next door to the one Redman had experienced those inexplicable events. The person held responsible for this horrific act was Morris, Naomi's own brother. He too was found lifeless within the same walls. However, a cloud of suspicion hung heavily over another person in Naomi's life, her husband, John Dancy, also known as Father. Father, a figure who somehow managed to elude the grasp of justice, lived out his days without facing any charges for Naomi's death. His name, though, remained etched in whispers and hushed conversations, forever linked to the tragic demise of his wife. But the story doesn't end there. The dark veil of this murder mystery was lifted quite unexpectedly when Father's son paid a visit to Redman's house. This was around the time when Redman had just started dating his future wife, Kate. With a somber look in his eyes, the old man took a moment before speaking. His words, when they came, were like a gust of winter wind, chilling and shocking. He said, "My mother was murdered in the house next door." Can you imagine the shock that must have rippled through Redman at that moment? The ghostly encounters in his teenage years, the strange happenings that he had dismissed as his sister's pranks, suddenly took on a more sinister shade. Could the faceless woman haunting his childhood home be the spirit of Naomi, wronged and restless, seeking justice for her untimely death? Was it her presence that moved the yellow vase, that turned the lights on and off, that brought about the cold feeling in the house? This murder was the dark secret that was hidden away in the house next door. Could the faceless ghost be Naomi, the woman who was murdered next door? This question kept circling in Redman's mind. Could the apparition that had unsettled his teenage years be the spirit of the woman whose life was tragically cut short right next door to his childhood home? Redmond's suspicions grew stronger. He began connecting the dots, intertwining the ghostly encounters with the murder mystery. The faceless figure, the inexplicable movements of objects, the eerie, cold feeling. Could these be Naomi's attempts to communicate from beyond the grave? His mind raced back to the stories he'd heard about Naomi. Her life was brutally ended in the house next door, her own brother convicted for the crime, yet suspicions surrounding her husband persisted. Could the spirit lingering in his room be Naomi, still seeking justice, still yearning to tell her story? But then again, Redmond was not a believer in the supernatural. He had attributed the strange occurrences in his room to his sister's pranks. But now, the uncanny incidents and the murder mystery seemed to be two sides of the same coin. The faceless ghost and the murdered woman next door were merging into a single, spine-chilling narrative. This wasn't just about a haunted room anymore. It was about a life abruptly ended, a family shrouded in mystery, and a history that refused to be forgotten. It was about Naomi, whose spirit, if Redmond's speculations were correct, was still tethered to the earthly realm, still seeking closure. Was there a way to confirm his speculations? Perhaps not. Ghosts, after all, don't leave tangible evidence. The truth of Naomi's demise was buried along with her, the secrets of the house next door locked away in the annals of time. Yet, the echoes of the past continued to resonate in Redmond's memories. And so, the tale of the faceless ghost and the murder mystery remains etched in Redmond's mind. A chilling reminder of the past, a haunting mystery of a life cut short, a story that intertwines the supernatural with the tragically real. This ghost story, intertwined with the murder mystery, is something Redmond will never forget.